Hello, I'm Chris Bober, and welcome back to the Bober Academy Football Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Bober, 8-year NFL veteran, 4 years in New York with the Giants, 4 years with the Kansas City Chiefs. Started a game, at least one game at every position on the O-line. And of course, our mission is to train and develop superior linemen to dominate on the gridiron here at the Bober Academy. And we're bringing you back to our Building Alignment 2.0 series with Dr. Nolan Clausen at Midwest Movement. Before we get started, just a quick reminder, if you are listening to this podcast on one of your podcast apps, be sure to subscribe to our channel and you'll get notified of new episodes. If you're watching this on YouTube, right down there is the notification bell and the subscribe button. It would really help us if you subscribe to our channel to get the word out. And of course, wherever you're watching this on any social media, do all the things that social media people do. Like, comment, follow, retweet, send us some questions, whatever you want to do. We sure do appreciate it. Now, as we continue on with our Building Alignment 2.0, right? We're back better than ever. We started with the ground up, right? We talked about feet and ankles. We talked about proper knee alignment. Last month, we talked about your power in your hips and having mobility. This month, we're going to move up the body and go into our back and our core. And of course, as linemen, we're not known for necessarily having six packs, but we will say that core strength is a key fundamental feature. But it's a little bit different. As we bring Dr. Nolan in, Dr. Nolan, I know that we can talk about like how important it is to have a strong core and all the different things we can do for that, but you take it a little bit different direction in teaching how important our back and our core strength is, and you start with breathing. Tell us about how breathing is such an important part of optimizing your strength and performance on the field.
Yeah. So in our office, we strongly believe that pain and performance all revolve around trying to get our breath right. And so we always say we can just keep chasing our tails with a shoulder injury, or we can keep chasing our tails with a knee or a hip injury. If we don't address breathing at some point along that journey of either performance or injury prevention or pain prevention and all that stuff. You said it, as linemen, your six packs and things like that, they don't matter in offensive linemen at all. And I'll actually say that the stronger our cores are, the more those six packs and those abdominal, like the perfect V that you're seeing in the running backs and the receivers, we actually don't desire that for our patients or for our athletes. So we talk about breathing, because if we can get breathing right, we can get everything else right afterwards. And if we get breathing right, then we can start working on like actual core strengthening. But if we don't get that right, then you're kind of just you're building a city on top of on like sand. You're building it on uneven ground, and so it defeats the purpose if you don't start with breathing.
So before we go into some of the, I know we're going to talk a lot about breathing. As linemen, we've never had six packs in our life, and we desire them. But you're saying that we shouldn't desire them. Do you think the running backs like desire to have our bellies? You know what I mean? Because we obviously are stronger, we're bigger, but so our hopes of a six pack really aren't conducive to offensive line play.
Yeah, well, I think there's a lot of pressure for those running backs and wide receivers. If they start developing a gut, they get criticized pretty quickly, right? So we don't have to worry about that as linemen, right? You see Ezekiel Elliott or Eddie Lacy, anytime they start gaining weight, everybody was all over them. And I kind of think it wasn't healthy for them because their cores probably paid the price. So we have that going for us. We have a kind of a funny meme of two people standing in swimsuits, and the meme says, "I'll show you mine if you show me yours." And then the next meme is them letting their guts just hang out. And so as linemen, we get that unique ability. It looks cool if we actually let our guts hang out, right? And so that will also help us out when it comes to building a strong core. So
Well,
Uh,
speaking of letting your belly out, you did a great presentation at a networking group that showed where like this strength comes from actually the way you breathe and the way you use your core and actually sticking your gut out. So show
yeah.
us how that works when it comes to the anatomy of our body and why that's important.
Yep. So we're going to draw on this marker board behind us. I think the best way to kind of visually see this and is to draw through it with you guys. So right here, we basically have a side view of our spine. So like that's the neck curve, that's the mid back, that's the low back. This is our rib cage right here,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so in our neck, we have muscles in the front and in the back, right? That kind of support us and hold us upright. In the mid back, muscles in the back, ribs that hold us upright, low back, muscles in the back, soft, squishy organs in the front that hold us upright. So if you just going off that, you would say, well, crap, the low back is not the strongest part. But we have this system. It's a dynamic system that actually supports our lumbar spine, and that is through breathing. Okay, so inside those ribs, we have lungs that sit right in there. Okay, when we breathe, we are supposed to breathe in with our diaphragm lowering down. And when that diaphragm lowers down, it creates negative atmospheric pressure for the lungs to expand down, right? But what happens down here is what's really important for us as athletes and in performance. So when you push one wall in on a sealed container, so this abdomen is a sealed container, when you push one wall in, it has to press out in all the other directions. And we call this intra-abdominal pressure, IAP for short. And when we get that pushing down and we get that pressure out, that basically gives the support to the low back. It acts as like an airbag that fills and gets really, really strong. Now, you might have heard this as an athlete in training that we should suck our belly in to get those muscles to contract. And in reality, those muscles actually thrive and function the best when they get pressure pushing out on them and they just hold their ground and maybe even expand a little bit, but have something to press back down on, right? If we're just not using this pressure and we suck those belly muscles in, they're just not very strong. So that's the proper way to breathe, right? Now we're
Well,
going to show.
Nolan, would you agree with this? I think that just I don't know if it's society or whatever. We always want to suck our gut in, just
Correct.
to not look like we have a belly. And as linemen,
Yeah.
You play your whole life as a lineman, then you get done. You don't have to be big anymore, so you like want to look like you're skinnier. So
Yeah.
you're like actually putting yourself in a worse posture by sucking in and holding your belly in. Is that what you're
Right.
saying?
Yeah, that's exactly what we're saying. Like if you look at a toddler or baby, they got the
Mhm.
big Buddha bellies, right? They don't look flabby though, do they? They look tight and like and they don't have much body fat on them. And over time we get self-conscious, so we suck those muscles in, and then when we have to like relax, it's just flabby kind of a thing, right? So what happens when we don't breathe with our belly is what we're going to draw in red. So if we're breathing up through our chest, basically the diaphragm will go the opposite direction. Okay, I don't know if you can see that, but the
It gets
diaphragm will
sucked up
actually,
into your chest.
yep, it'll lift up into that lung cavity. And what happens, same dynamics, is if you pull up on a wall of a sealed container, everything else sucks back in, right?
Mm.
And so that's where we get that sucking in, and we get all these muscles in our core will actually suck in, and that doesn't give us any stability in the low back. And so what happens is now these back muscles that everybody complains about being really tight and tired and stiff, they have to work extra hard to hold us upright, right? And
Mm.
so specifically, like when we're pushing on people all the time as linemen or catching people as linemen, we have to be really strong in the low back And if we are just relying on this part of our low back to hold us upright, we're missing a whole other half of the equation. You like anybody that's listening to this, go up, suck your belly in, and go push on a wall. Okay. Now push your belly out and go push on a wall. Like you're gonna feel a difference. You're gonna be stronger. You're gonna be more stable when you actually push those belly muscles out, right? So this is something we talk about with everybody. We talk about it all the time. So if we can get just our breathing right, filling into the belly when we inhale, then we can get all other things started on the right path, right? We're creating pressure with our breath. Now, the other thing that we talk about, so we're erasing this.
Well, before we go that, Nolan, just like an analogy that we've shared in the past is like a can of pop, or for the
Yes,
adults
correct.
out there, a can of beer, right?
Yep.
You got that can here, and while it's closed and there's pressure pushing out on it, you can't squeeze that can, right? And it's
Beautiful.
pushing out. It's a very solid thing. You can't step on it; it will not break. But the second I open this thing up and I relieve that pressure, then all of a sudden it's like, oh,
You,
yeah,
yeah,
I can
you can
squeeze
bend
that
it.
thing, and I just lost all my the stability that, and it's important for linemen because we're talking about our power below our core, which comes through the ground and with our big muscles of our hips and our glutes and all them. And then you have these weapons up top that you're trying to strike people with. Well, if you suck your belly in, you lose that access to that power, and your weapons just become like very weak objects rather than truly driving force through your whole body, through the
Yeah.
ground, and maximizing that pressure.
We call it energy leakage.
Mm.
You lose all that energy you created down into the ground that you're trying to transfer out through your arms into the next person. You lose it all if you don't have this connection with your core, right? So, like going back to that pop can, right? If you have a pop can and you step down on it, right? And it's open. So we're going to say that it's open, right? You can stand on a pop can with, like you or I could do it,
Mhm.
but as soon as we dent in a side of that pop can, it's going to collapse underneath us, right? It's going to squish. So, like, basically, if we can create the pressure of pushing our belly out, we can basically make sure that there's no dents in the can, kind of a thing. And then we can hold a ton of pressure.
And another question I have is, I mean, I learned so much when we did this last year in building a lineman on the first series. And I changed the way I teach my linemen how to have correct posture because
Yeah.
as an offensive lineman, I see a lot of videos, a lot of drills, even a lot of guys that are playing. And what they do is they turn and they try to keep their head out of the play, and they create that either straight up and down neutral or a negative spine angle. And
Yeah.
in order, when you do that, like you said, you're sucking your belly and your diaphragm is going up, so then you lost that connection to your ground. Like even in pass protection, I want to teach not a lean but more of a forward facing body posture so that our core stays engaged. Is it, was
Yeah.
that, am I along the right lines of thinking like that?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So, like, if this is our pelvis line
Mm-hmm.
and this is like our diaphragm line, right?
Mm-hmm.
We call this our open scissor position, right? And basically, these muscles are working really hard at in that position. But here, like our abdominal muscles right here, they're really stretched thin. They have a really hard time. So, like, say you're holding 8 pounds of weight, right?
Mm-hmm.
You hold it right here, you can hold it all day long, right? Because those muscles are connected or they're close to here. Now, if you hold that weight out 8 pounds out here for a long period of time, that muscle stretch,
Yeah.
you're not as strong, you're not as effective. So what we're trying to do is with creating that pressure, we get more of a posture where we bring the pelvis and we bring the rib cage down so that now we're in this really centrated position where we have the strength in the core. You're exactly right what you're talking about. Like it in football, offensive linemen have a really bad habit of just like
Mm.
really arching their back. And it's if you like arch your back right here and you're right here, how effective do you think you could be able at punching somebody,
Yeah,
right?
they just have this negative stereotype to say, I got to keep my head out of it. And I am not all at all for striking with your head or headbutting or anything like that.
Right.
But I feel like you're actually in a more vulnerable position for injury with that negative spine angle because that's not how our bodies are designed to absorb force or deliver force either.
Yeah.
And that it just shows that we lose that connection by the breathing stuff. So
Yep.
as athletes, as linemen especially, what are some good habits that we can have when it comes to trying to, do some things to keep us in the proper body position through breathing?
So it's really boring, and that's the problem here, right? It's not a flashy exercise where you're squatting a bunch of weight, you're standing on a balance ball, and like all these flashy things that you're seeing on the internet, right? And it's really boring. But lay on your back or lay on your belly. If you lay on your back, prop your knees up into 90-90, like put them up on a chair or ottoman or a couch, and basically just put your hands on your belly and try to breathe in through your nose and push your hands out. Okay. When you breathe in, you push your muscles out, and it seems simple, and it seems we always say breathing's about as boring as a rash, but it's literally, quite frankly, the most important thing you could do in performance or injury rehab, and that's because we have to create that pressure. So at home, you're watching TV, you're watching a show. It doesn't require a lot, but just lay on your back, prop your legs up, start breathing into your belly, and it's going to be really hard at first. And if people try this, I guarantee you they're going to get frustrated, and they might even quit because it's hard to start this
Mhm.
ability to do it. But if anybody that knows how to juggle, you didn't learn how to juggle the first time you picked up three balls, right? Like you gotta put some effort into it and just keep trying. Like the only way you get better at juggling is by trying, right? So keep trying to belly breathe. And we say that we breathe roughly 17,000 times in a day. And if you can just take away 100 breaths a day and put them into your belly, like you're going to start repatterning these motions. And if you practice it enough, it'll naturally transfer over into the gym. Then it's going to naturally transfer over onto the field, and it's going to naturally transfer over to all parts of your life the more you practice this. Okay.
Well, I know one method you said, and I've even tried this, and I got to go back to it because I forget because it's boring, like you said. But is when you're driving, when you stop at a stoplight, work
Yep.
on through that stoplight, work on the proper breathing, right?
Yep.
Well, that's an easy way to do it. But so I know we talked about this before, but tell us some tricks like when you're doing a drill or a like a lift. Like how can guys set their core and their breathing right in doing that? I just some helpful hints just to say I'm gonna go do bench press today, right?
Yep.
What can I do to make sure I'm breathing properly and setting my core properly?
So bench is a really good example. So uh, often you see like in powerlifting, they really get that big arch in their back, right? It's a cheat basically to get more weight, right? But if you're gonna lift weight, even in your warm up sets, push your spine into the bench. It's gonna get your spine in a better position, and it'll actually help get breathing into the core. Now, that's one way. The next thing, even if you're just going to pick up a kettlebell or you're gonna do a squat, I want you to sniff air into your belly, like, right? Or like when you laugh, people talk about belly laughs, right?
Mhm.
Just let go, like that,
Yeah.
and you can feel the pressure in that belly. Create that pressure, then do the movement. Okay, so those two are really good. My third and my favorite one, especially in the beginning, is everybody's got weight belts, and everybody's trying to just throw them out and say, don't ever use a weight belt. I think we can use them to our advantage. So we can put the weight belt on, but you're going to back off the tightness of it 2 notches.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to stick, or if you can, put 2 fingers in between the belt and your belly.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you go to do the movement, I want you to push your belly into the weight belt. And if you're doing it properly enough, like you or I could walk up behind them and try to twist that weight belt around them, and it shouldn't go anywhere because it should be filled with the belly. Okay.
Yeah, that's a great hack, Bober hack, we'll call that.
Yeah,
But
I like
you
it.
can do that for all your exercises, really, just as
Yep.
a way to continue to push out. I know that when my back starts to get sore, something like that. I mean, literally, if I can just take 5 to 10 breaths and breathe right, it almost like it resets it if it hasn't gotten
Yeah.
too bad. And another thing I'll do with my guys, especially when I can get them into contact, maybe in the summer or something like that, as we prepare for the season, I call it the grunt technique. And I
Yes.
tell them when they go to, like, say we're doing a drill where we're doing pass protection and they're going to strike. Well, I have them like grunt when they strike. And it's amazing how much more power they have when they would just grunt. Just like,
Yep.
you just do a drill where you throw them a med ball, they're like, ugh, and they hit it. If they can grunt, they're engaging their core and then they're totally locked in. And
Yeah.
it's just it's kind of like a caveman technique, but it's
Seems
very
silly.
effective to teach them to do that.
Look at tennis, look at all throwing activities. Like they're grunting every single time they hit it, and you can hear it. And there's a reason they're doing
Mm.
it. They're not on the best stage in the world because they're embarrassed about grunting. They are doing it because it gives them a mechanical advantage, right?
Yeah,
And
I've tried to, I don't think this is etiquette, but I've noticed I golfed last week, and if I
mhm,
paid attention and just like kind of before I started my swing, if I would set my core, just
yeah,
like a or like that, I was hitting the ball really, really good, really
yeah,
powerful. I don't think I can grunt in
yeah.
golf. I don't think they would
Sure you can.
if I'm out there on the golf course and I take a big swing like "Ah!" I don't think that'll play, but at least you can do it, set your core before you do that, right?
Just don't do it while you're putting, and you'll be fine.
Yeah. Hey, if you hit the ball farther, maybe I'll start a new trend and we'll see it come along.
So going back, I know we're going pretty long, but going back, you said like if your back is hurting, you take 5 breaths into your belly and it starts feeling better.
Mhm.
Actually, one of your guys, Chris, came into our office and he's rehabbing a shoulder right now. And we've been dealing with some other things, haven't really touched his shoulder, but I said, hey, let me take a look at that shoulder. And the goal was I was going to stress the importance of belly breathing.
Mhm.
And so we took his shoulder and I went to go like this and he's like, like a little bit of pain, don't have much range of motion. So we put it back down. I said, take 5 belly breaths in. So he breathes 5 times into the belly. He struggled with it a little bit. He went, takes that arm, and it goes back like another 20 degrees, no
Wow.
pain. And basically, it was just the brain just loving that feedback. Okay. So if nothing else, just breathe into the belly.
Yeah, it's just I know every week you talk about how important this stuff is, but the breathing in the core really is like the foundation of all your strength, all your performance, and it's amazing how something as exterior as a shoulder
Yep.
can just benefit from the proper breathing, the proper posture, and things like that. And it's like you said, those transmitters in your brain start working better and to deal with the pain and fix it, just because they're working properly.
Yeah. Yeah. And you can probably see I'm smiling really big because I love talking about this. And I just
Yeah.
geek out about the core. The more we can talk about it, the more we can get people doing it. It's just gonna escalate how well we're performing on the field. No doubt
Well,
in my
we're gonna
mind.
start we're gonna start a movement, let that belly hang out, man. And us
Yeah.
linemen, we can be the spoke. This is where like maybe some NIL money and some of that stuff comes from. You get
Good
the belly
idea.
society, and all of a sudden you have these strong performing athletes. But maybe we'll get there someday. But well, yeah. So we're getting kind of long here. So we're gonna kind of wrap it up. But Dr. Nolan, thank you so much. Of course, we're gonna keep adding things out there for us to learn how to do this properly. I know I'm going to put a bunch of stuff out. I'm sure we'll come together and do some more of this stuff here very soon, so that we can not just talk about it, but show you guys out there how to function properly by just something as simple as breathing. So take our advice here. And as we wrap up here, again, reminder, down below is the subscribe button on my YouTube channel. Subscribe to our podcast so you get notifications. Then, of course, on social media, interact with us. We'll get back to you, ask us questions. We're always happy to answer. And right down below, and wherever you're finding this, you'll have a link to Midwest Movement Elkhorn. They're out in right by Rick's Meats out there on 204th Street. And of course, Nolan has told me a couple of guys that have watched this podcast that came in and benefited from what they do in Midwest Movement. So we're going to slowly but surely keep making more guys healthy and getting them back on the field. Dr. Nolan, thanks again for joining us today. We really appreciate it. Your wisdom is helping what I do, and it's helping a lot of people out there. So thanks for
having me on.
And again, see Dr. Nolan at MidwestMovementElkhorn.com for any of your stuff. So I'm Chris Bober with the Bober Academy, and we will see you next time.